So good morning. First of all, scarcity is never sustainable, as you can see here at the art museum close by. Yeah. So when you have scarcity of good pieces of art, you have a problem. I'm not that smart. Thank you, Justine, for this kind introduction, but I'm basically just a chemist, and I'm teaching here at Erasmus School, at the business school, because I want to show that cradle to cradle makes sense for business. And I'm systematically collecting business cases, and I systematically work on how to run businesses with that. At the other side, I'm teaching at Delft University for the architects and engineers, and in Twente for the material science and the industrial designers. But overall, I'm pretty mediocre. So I'm just 95% mediocre. So yeah, so that's why I'm biting fingernails, for example, when I'm in traffic jam, or I never take cold showers. I don't do any type of sports except running to catch trains or planes. But I'm leading in one little field, which is material science. Yeah, where I know basically what I see in front of me, I can tell you what material it is. Yeah? And I only can do this by working together with my colleagues. So even then, I need a team for that. And I now don't know how to handle this with the remote control, because my presentation will be much too long if I always ask you to flip to the next one. So can we maybe take the stuff different? I need a remote control here. Can you help me with that? Yeah.
2 seconds, I got it. If you tell your next video.
Good, because otherwise I have 90 slides and it takes too long just to say next slide, and as well it's pretty boring. So I want to talk to you about basically using 40 years of blaming and shaming for innovation. 40 years ago, yeah, we had the Club of Rome report for limits to growth. And one of the key authors of this report was Wouter van Dieren, a Dutch scientist from IMSA in Amsterdam. And what I'm doing with Cradle to Cradle, I just use his expertise now for innovation and quality. So a product which becomes waste has a quality problem. A product which is connected to child labor has a quality problem. So we talk about quality and innovation, and that's why as well maybe we could find today an opportunity that we could connect the Hogeschool closer to the university, because actually for what we see, for the next 20 years we would more need applied science than actually doing new science, because we know so many things but we cannot implement them, because there's no proper research. And we don't have enough time, because the system destroys itself so fast. Look, between the Declaration of Human Rights and the right to vote for women, there was a time difference of 130 years. So even when we learned about human rights, we still didn't understand that women are humans as well for 130 years. And we don't have enough time from the expertise which we have to implement the knowledge which we have. And that's why Hogeschools are so much more important, and that's why we really need them in that context. And, oh, no, thank you. So I'm in Rotterdam, and Rotterdam has this famous Rotterdam Climate Initiative, but I'm not happy with that. So Rotterdam wants to be, this is a tie I got from the mayor when we talked about Rotterdam being climate neutral. But this is very sad, because you only can be climate neutral when you don't exist. It's the only way. So Rotterdam wants to be climate neutral in 2040 now, or 2030 already. But I was in Brazil, and I was in the Amazon region, and there are still 600 billion trees left, and I didn't see one climate neutral tree. Rotterdam wants to be carbon neutral in 2030, but you can only be carbon neutral when you don't exist. So that's why we need to work together between different institutions. Did you ever see a carbon neutral tree, ever? Yeah. So all our brain means that we are more stupid than a tree. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's why I'm talking about innovation. But I want to ask you for a paradigm shift. And we are a small group, so whenever you have anything what you want to say, just raise your hand and say, Michael, this doesn't make sense, or Michael, I have another idea, whatever, because then we can just react and deal with that. Traditionally, people think it's environmental protection when they destroy less. Yeah? So they say, please protect the environment, reduce your water consumption. Please protect the environment, reduce your energy bill, reduce your waste production. But we are not protecting by that. We are only destroying less. It's like, please protect your child, beat your child only 3 times instead of 5 times. No, we are not protecting, we're only destroying less. Yeah. And we generate a lot of these interesting terms. One of the most critical elements when we talk about scarcity is phosphorus, yeah, by far. Yeah. We are mining more radioactivity by the phosphate industry than it's used in all nuclear power plants, far more. Yeah. Just in Central Europe, we put on agricultural land 30,000 tons of uranium in Central Europe in the last 20 years, yeah, just as a byproduct of artificial fertilizer. So we are dependent on 2 countries which control more than 60% of the source. Yeah. And you can think about replacing copper, nickel, cobalt, indium under certain circumstances. But how do we want to replace phosphorus? How do we want to replace phosphate? Every day we need to pick up 2 grams of phosphate, and every day we need to release to the environment 2 grams of phosphate. And otherwise we cannot have teeth, we cannot have bones, we cannot have energy storage in our body. Maybe you remember adenosine diphosphate, triphosphate. That's how we store our energy in our body, that we can run, that we can work under stress, etc. So, can you imagine? There is not one organic label. Yeah? People like to eat organic, but there's not one organic label which allows that our own excrements can go back. Yeah? It's only organic without us. Yeah? But with that, just by that, we are too many people on this planet immediately. Okay, we can live like a jellyfish in the oceans and we don't need that much phosphorus, but does it really make sense? We need bones, we need teeth, we need energy storage in our body. So the most critical element of we see for us as humans is phosphorus, yeah, by far. And there's not one thinking that we are a part of it, that we can put our own phosphate back. This is one of the most scary things in scarcity, that we think, it's better, it's only organic without us when we are not a part of it. So we take things, we make things, we put them into landfills, and as you know, Rotterdam has the world's largest incinerator for waste, and we think it's environmental protection. Yeah. I was talking to the mayor, and he said, isn't it great, that our public sector runs on renewable energy? Yeah. And then, renewable energy, what is that? I said, yeah, we get our energy from burning waste, and because there's always waste, it's renewable, isn't it? Yeah. But you lose 95% of the energy when you burn waste compared to getting materials back. Yeah. But so when we reduce our footprint, when we minimize our footprint, we only make the whole Earth a little later a big landfill, yeah? Cradle to grave. But all the LCAs at Delft, industrial ecology, are still from cradle to grave. That means that the whole world will be a graveyard, yeah? Just a little later. Yeah? And we can do something in that, and we can reduce, for example, Justine has been talking about, we can reduce the amount of plastic going into the oceans. Yeah? There are 12 million tons of plastic going into the oceans. We can reduce it to 10 million tons. So what? Yeah? We have a design problem. So if we try just to minimize existing things, we make the wrong things perfect. And then they are perfectly wrong. Yeah? We need to go from Rotterdam into Brussels. It doesn't help you to go efficiently into Amsterdam. So we first need to say, what is the right thing? Yeah? So here is a quality problem. This is primitive chemistry. If we make plastic which can be exposed to water, oceans, and it stays in the ocean and it's taken up by the animals, then we have a quality problem. It's an innovation problem. It's not a moral problem. Because when you make it a moral problem, it's never there when we need it. Yeah? Like Al Gore says, the greenhouse effect is a moral issue. Yeah? But not only the Germans forget moral issues immediately when they're under stress. So when you make a moral thing, it's never there when you need it. Yeah? So I'm talking about quality and innovation. So when you're under stress, you know that you need to invest in quality, because otherwise you don't get out of your crisis. So let's talk about quality and innovation. Here we have a massive quality problem. More seals, more whales, more turtles are killed by plastic than by anything else. The areas which you see here, the plastic concentration is 40 times higher than the plankton concentration. This is pretty stupid. And we can look at this. We find all these products here. These animals this bird here becomes a big stomach. They eat all the plastic. And so a jellyfish thinks a turtle thinks it's a jellyfish when it's a plastic bag, and then they pick it up and they become big stomach and they die with a full stomach of plastic. This is a quality problem. But we have been growing up by all these environmental disasters like Seveso, Bhopal, Chernobyl, and that's why we try to be less bad. In the key year for us in Europe was '86. Before there was Bhopal already, a 3 Mile Island. But we already saw the writing on the wall, but we didn't really act. But in '86 there was Chernobyl. And then after that, there was the whole River Rhine contaminated by Höchst because they couldn't control their cooling water. And every week they put nitro aromats, strong carcinogens in the water, and 30 million people drink the water from the river. And so everybody get more and more panicked. In November, then there was the whole River Rhine turning pink by a Sando disaster. The chemical companies acted immediately. They changed their names. So they changed from Sando from etc. and Ciba-Geigy and into Lanxess, Aventis, Novartis, Clariant. They changed the names just to say, oh, we're not chemical companies, we are life science companies. But we lost a whole generation of smart scientists with that. And the ones who studied science did it with a bad consciousness. That's why they try to minimize their footprint. I met recently somebody from BASF and Dow and AXO and DSM kept their names, and that's why they got so strong in efficiency. Because they said, yes, we are evil, but we try to make the best. I said, oh yes, I'm sorry, I'm from BASF, but I try to make the best out of it. That's why eco-efficiency became so strong, because I said, yes, I'm 100% evil, tomorrow I'm 90% evil, 80%, 70%. But this is not a positive agenda. And we need to look at elements. People now were focusing on the energy side first, because with efficiency, you can do something in energy. You can reduce your carbon footprint for 20%. We can do something. The European Union does a lot of these things, activities like we are banning light bulbs, for example. If you would make legislation that women and men have to wear ties in winter, you can reduce the room temperature for 2 degrees Celsius. When you get a little strangled, you can reduce the room temperature for 2 degrees. That's far more than you can achieve with any light bulb banning. You can do a lot in the logic of minimizing your carbon footprint. You can drink champagne instead of Prosecco, because champagne has far smaller bubbles, so you can really do something to be less bad. You can do endlessly. You can cut your hair shorter to minimize your shampoo consumption and your water consumption. You can, like for example, in a building, never take the stairs in a building, because we can show you for a 40-year-old vegetarian that it takes at least 5 times more energy to make the calories for a human person to lift that person by taking the stairs, compared to the elevator. You can reduce your carbon footprint for 5 times when you take the elevator compared to the stairs. So when you want to protect the environment in that logic, always take the elevator. And by the way, when you die a little earlier, you can minimize your carbon footprint even more. Yeah? So we can really do something to be less bad, but does it really make sense? In that logic, I can tell you East Germany has been protecting the environment so much better than the Netherlands just by inefficiency. Yeah? They couldn't destroy all these wetlands because there was no money for that. Yeah? They couldn't destroy the soil only locally. They had contaminated hotspots, but the soil quality was so much better in East Germany just by inefficiency. Yeah? So don't make the wrong things perfect, otherwise they get perfectly wrong. And the efficiency gains are always invested in more destruction. Yeah? That's what it is. So it's called, since 1906, yeah, there was a Scottish colleague who understood it already as a rebound effect. Yeah? So when you optimize the wrong thing, you always get the funding for more destruction. That's why don't make the wrong things efficient. Yeah? So we look at materials, for example. Copper is pretty limited, but we can go through all these elements, like antimony, for example, is even more limited. Yeah? Cobalt, indium, yeah? All these materials are limited. People look at the energy side, but the material side is far more critical, because the energy we will learn how to use, how to harvest the sun, yeah, how to use the wind, how to use renewable energy, we will learn. But we don't have enough meteorites coming in. So material scarcity is definitely a critical thing. Yeah? And because of efficiency, yeah, the pieces you use, copper in wiring, in a car, in little electric engines, in your mobile phone, yeah, the pieces get smaller and smaller, so the recycling rate goes down more and more because of efficiency. Yeah? Because you use the material more efficient. So it is amazing that the recycling rate was never that low in human history for copper. Scarcity number 2 is soil. It's amazing. You know, people are growing corn to make biogas. Yeah? It would be funny somehow. Yeah? Can you imagine? So when you grow 1 hectare of corn, yeah, Europe now uses about 20% of the whole agricultural land to grow energy plants. Yeah? For making biogas. Yeah. When you grow corn in the Netherlands, you lose between 11 and 30 tons of topsoil per hectare in a year. Yeah. So we tested it, we measured it different circumstances. So the minimum is that we lose more than 5,000 times more soil than we make. Yeah. But it's amazing. Soil is not even included in carbon trading. Yeah, even soil, 2/3 of all the carbon is in vegetation and in topsoil. Topsoil has more than half of all the carbon in it. Yeah? So we destroy topsoil to make biogas. This is pretty sick. Yeah? Rotterdam has the world's largest refinery of palm oil. Yeah? Europe is importing 3 million tons of palm oil to make biodiesel. Yeah? 1 hectare of rainforest in Indonesia has 7,000 tons of carbon in it. Yeah. 1 hectare of palm oil plantation has 60 tons of carbon in it. This is what I call ecologism. It's not about ecology. You only pretend to do something for the ecology, but you keep people busy. Yeah. That's why Cradle to Cradle became successful in the United States, because we had George Bush. George Bush was a benefit for us, yeah, in a very strange sense. Yeah. Because he was so unintelligent that people knew it's up to us. Yeah? Everywhere here in Europe, everybody's waiting for the government, yeah? And said, oh, what is the government doing? Yeah? But in the United States, yeah? Can you imagine in November 2007, I was 5 years ago, I was at a big conference in Sydney. Yeah? You know where Sydney is? Yeah? There was George Bush as well. Yeah? And he said, I'm so glad to be in Austria. Yeah? Yeah? In Austria. Yeah. After 7 years in power, he didn't know the difference between Austria and Australia. Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it amazing? When this is your president, you know you have some potential as well. Yeah. Yeah. And you don't wait for the government. Yeah. Yeah. And that's important, because if you wait for the government just is pretending to do something. They keep you busy. Yeah. That's why in the United States it became popular, because industry said, we need to take care of these things, because the government is not doing anything. Before that, there was Clinton and Gore, and they pretended to do something, but they actually didn't do anything. Yeah? Al Gore was the one diluting the Kyoto Treaty. He said, we cannot do this to our industry. Yeah? So can you imagine soil is not included in carbon trading, and the carbon trading which was agreed in 94 and the goals were completely useless. We were watered down, and then even this didn't get ratified by the American parliaments. Yeah. Amazing, because Al Gore says it's a moral thing, and when you're in power, you cannot think about moral issues, isn't it? Yeah. You forget about ethical behavior.
Mark?
Yeah.
Question. To what extent is the topsoil problem related to biofuel production or just to agricultural practice in general?
The question is when you do biofuel production to reduce the carbon footprint, then this is stupid. Yeah. And when you do it extensively to get as much biomass out of it, you make a problem bigger because you don't give anything back, yeah? Because you harvest all biomass. So that's the worst of agriculture. But your remark is key because there's not one type of agriculture which actually keeps soil, yeah? Except permaculture and except growing trees. Yeah? But even organic agriculture is not really keeping soil, but the difference is a factor 50, yeah, compared to that. If you look at organic agriculture, the soil consumption is about 50 times lower compared to industrialized agriculture. Yeah? That's about, but you're right, it's a good intervention because the whole agriculture has a problem to handle things. So a baby takes about 6,500 diapers. You can reduce it to 6,000, 5,500. 20% of the municipal waste stream of Rotterdam, yeah, are diapers. And there's some future in it, yeah? Because we are getting older, the diapers get bigger, yeah? So we are all in the pre-diaper phase somehow, yeah? If we looked at the city of Cologne and we found that the adult diapers, yeah, are already from the volume more than the baby diapers, yeah? So there's a demographic change, yeah, it means more diapers in that case. So we can reduce it. This mountain is just from 1 year of a baby taking diapers. Yeah. And here we are. Yeah. Copenhagen wants to be carbon neutral already in 2025. Yeah. You know, right now in Rotterdam we have the discussion whether it can be 25 or 30 or 35, whatever. But isn't it amazing? Yeah. Carbon neutral. They sign a commitment not to exist in 2025. Because we are already here. Yeah. Even by thinking, you're not carbon neutral. By breathing, you can never be carbon neutral. Yeah. So we feel so bad to be on this planet that we don't want to exist. Yeah. That's amazing.
Is this more than a question of definition?
No, it's more than a question of definition, because if you don't allow that our own materials can go back, then it's a question of what you see our role on this planet. Yeah. If we want to compensate what you did bad, then it's a different thing. For being carbon neutral, we are too many people on this planet. Yeah? So we need to learn to be carbon positive. We need to learn to be beneficial for this planet, because all the other species are beneficial, but our biomass is so high that we cannot just be neutral. Yeah? Because for neutral, we are too many. So it's not Yeah, I'm saying it's if 95% of all the materials which we need, yeah, need carbon, then it's not about energy per se, it's a mismanagement of carbon. Yeah. If only 2.1% of the Earth's crust is carbon, but 95% of the chemicals, the materials which we need carbon, then how can we be so stupid to put carbon dioxide in the atmosphere or in the ocean? So it's not an energy problem per se, it's a mismanagement problem of materials. Yeah? Because carbon dioxide is a material. Yeah? Yeah? Nitrous oxide is a material. Yeah? Methane is a material. So the materials cause the greenhouse effect, not the energy per se. So it's a question how to manage carbon. And this is the first thing to say, be carbon neutral. People talk about low carbon, whatever, yeah? But this will not help us, because it only means to optimize wrong things. We need to come back to different ways to look at it. But it's getting even worse. Yeah? The whole environmental movement leads to this feeling that it's better we are not here. Yeah? So you see Toyota, for example, says the aim is zero emission. But but you can only have zero emissions when you don't exist. Yeah? So, okay, Toyota has a lot of technical problems, yeah, and they were hit by the tsunami, and they were hit by Fukushima, and they were hit by flooding in Thailand. And so they produced 2 million cars less in 2 years. Do they want to say that's our goal? Yeah, zero emissions. Yeah, you can only have zero emissions when you don't exist. Even if you would shoot yourself right now, you would have emissions. So you're here already. So where it really gets sad is here. Yeah. When you see a little baby here, which says it's better you would not be born. That's the logic out of it. Yeah. And that makes it really sad, because when you question the existence of people, they become greedy. If somebody else eats my lunch, yeah, said, oh, you're too many, yeah, then you see in Israel, people become aggressive and hostile. And then they want to grab all the stuff, because somebody else might take it. Yeah. That's why scarcity is more a social problem, because it makes fear. Yeah. Yeah. You get scared. Scarcity and scare, yeah, it's the same thing. And that means you grab it and you become greedy. Because normally 95% of the people are generous and friendly when they feel accepted and when they feel safe. I've been looking at the poorest of poor people, and even they, when they feel safe and accepted, they're always generous and sharing. But when you say it's better you're not here, yeah, Justine, if you're not here, it's better, then she becomes hostile. Yeah. That's why it's important to understand it's not a technical problem and a scientific problem first, it's a cultural problem first. Yeah. You had a question. Yeah.
Yes, I absolutely agree that you can need optimization. However, historically seen, you also need a sort of target or focus. And in the 90s, it was very popular to say in industry you used, let's go for zero defect.
Yeah.
The first reaction was, if you go for zero defect, you shouldn't work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of philosophy. Still, it works to focus people that making defects
Mm-hmm.
was a waste.
Yeah.
Waste of time, waste of money, waste of energy.
Yeah, and
I think it's also a question of definition, or a question of getting this the message over.
yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. This is a whole tradition which relates as well to religion. Yeah? When you say humans are evil anyways and only God can redeem them, then you go to zero. Yeah? That's why all the impact, we always do environmental impact assessment from a perspective of minimizing impact. But you could say the same up differently. You could say we want to have 100% safe. Yeah? Not zero defect, but 100% safe. Yeah? And sure, you wouldn't go to this goal, and you cannot achieve it really, because you always will make mistakes. But you need to make sure that these mistakes are reversible. But where you see how far we are with that is that you see this tree is making emissions. Yeah? They show a tree. This tree is not zero impact. This tree is beneficial. This tree makes oxygen. This is an emission. Yeah? This tree is cleaning the air. I want to show that it's so important that you work together, because we first have a cultural problem. Yeah? And this has the consequences for the technology. This has a consequence for mobility. This has a consequence how we handle things out of this. That's why it's key that we do these seminars together and to talk about different options. But you're right with that, because what I'm doing with Cradle to Cradle, I just turn it around and see the glass is half full instead of half empty. Yeah. And that's why I say, look, if you make negative goals, yeah, you question our creativity and our knowledge from a very strange perspective. If you talk about zero waste, you still think about waste. Yeah? Yeah. If I tell you don't think about a pink elephant, you think about a pink elephant. That's why we talk about why don't we look at all nutrients instead of zero waste. Yeah. And sure, you can see it here in Switzerland. Yeah, companies destroy less rainforest. This is sustainable. Yeah. Even this term sustainability is pretty boring. Yeah. If I ask you how is your relationship with your wife, what do you say? Sustainable? Yeah. Then I'm really sorry for you. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's just the minimum. It's like compostable. Yeah, we are born and we are compostable already. So should we be composted now? Yeah, Yeah, it's just the minimum. It's just maintenance. Yeah. It's like in Dutch, it's even worse. Duurzaam. Yeah. How's the relationship with your wife? Duurzaam. Yeah, how nice. Yeah. But this is where we are, and this is where the reality comes from. That's why I need to focus on that first. This is Accenture. I've come into Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, and the whole city is plastered by Accenture on efficiency. Yeah. Yeah. How to get more out of the same resource? How perverse. Yeah. Look, the thing is when I was a child, a cow was producing 5,000 liters of milk per year. And I thought, this is a lot. Yeah. Today, a cow is producing about 13,000 tons of milk, 13,000 liters of milk per year. Yeah. Do you want to squeeze another 500 liters out of this cow? Yeah. Instead of, what we say is now we need to do some genetic engineering to reduce the methane production of cows. Yeah. Yeah. And we think it's science. Yeah. But this is pretty perverse. Why don't we first say, what is the right thing? Yeah. When Americans try to base their diet on eating beef, yeah, it's not very healthy. Yeah. So we need to say, what is healthy nutrition first, instead of optimizing cows. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it's not about how to get more out of the same resource. And it even gets worse. You make your customer, so you make your customer your enemy. You tell, if you don't buy it, it's even better. So all this sustainability communication means that you tell your customer, please don't buy my stuff. Yeah? That's where we are. The greenest house is the one which never gets built. Yeah? How nice. Yeah? We can do so, but what does it mean? It means don't do anything anymore. Why can't we make buildings like trees? Buildings which clean the air, buildings which clean water, buildings which are habitat for other species. This tree which you saw is a habitat for 200 other species. Yeah. Why don't we make buildings which are energy positive, which are carbon positive? Yeah. And that's why you see in southern countries, they get it. They understand it needs to go beyond sustainability. You see that in the south, it goes always beyond sustainability, because sustainability is just the minimum. Yeah. But what we do is we are sealing our buildings. Yeah. We think we want to be energy efficient when we seal buildings. But I analyze the indoor air quality in buildings, and the air quality is about 3 to 8 times worse than outside urban air. Yeah. If you take the urban air in Rotterdam compared to indoor air quality, the indoor air quality is 3 to 8 times worse. Yeah. Related, for example, to VOCs, etc. Yeah. You can look at different parameters, fine dust, etc. So now we seal the building, so we make the wrong things perfect. Then they are perfectly wrong, instead of first saying, what is healthy air? So what I want you to look at science to say, what is the right thing? Yeah. So what is a positive goal? Because then I can attract young students as well in less bad. Oh, I minimized my carbon footprint for 10%. You can do something to minimize your footprint when you wear high heels, for example, but does it really make sense? So indoor air quality first, before anything else, because asthma is already by far the most relevant children's disease. 2/3 of all the Dutch houses have massive schimmel problems, mold, massive. And this makes asthma as well. So we need to do something. So why don't we do a campaign in 2020? We will not have schimmel in Dutch homes anymore. This is applied science, because we know it's a problem and we need to learn how to handle this positively. But what we do is we go back and say, oh, we want to do natural materials. People said, oh yes, we need to go back. What I'm doing is I put products in glass boxes. I put it like an aquarium, and I look what is off-gassing. And all these peaks are chemicals which are off-gassing. And compared to children's toys, the off-gassing is much lower. So you can see every peak is one chemical, and we have here a nylon 6 carpet, but still not designed for indoor use, but it's still not that bad. We can see this. Oh, somebody took that out. There's another slide which is missing here, because it says we take carpets, now wool carpets, but you have much higher peaks from a wool carpet because God didn't design the sheep for the carpet, and it didn't design the sheep. God didn't design the sheep for your red vine as well. So when you have a 100% wool carpet, it's not wool, it's Teflon. Yeah? You're just in contact with Teflon. You never get in touch with the wool. Yeah? It's a Teflon coated wool. Yeah? So there's some wool inside, but that's it. Yeah? And sure, we can make jobs with that. We can do something and say, okay, how can we do something to collect stuff, end of pipe? We can take things out. Yeah? Like, for example, why don't you become an innovation engine in mobility for brake pads? Yeah? Very direct things. Yeah? So when you take Volkswagen or Ford and you say these brake pads, say, these brake pads are free of asbestos. And everybody thinks, oh, that's great, they took asbestos out. But instead, they put antimony in it, antimony sulfate, yeah, which is a much stronger carcinogen. Yeah, yeah.
That's reducing again, but we can do without braking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Regenerate braking, and that's for electric vehicles the
That's,
best argument to use and get the brake energy back.
yes.
You don't need to brake back.
Yeah, that's exactly what we say. But on the other side, we can say as well, we can make brake pads which have healthy abrasion, because we have stuff which always gets consumed, like food, like detergents, like shoe soles, like tires. The stuff gets consumed. They get changed chemically, biologically, physically. Yeah? And if you say, hey, Rotterdam, yeah, becomes healthy braking, yeah, we stop healthy, yeah, would be fun. Yeah.
The point I want to make is braking is energy. You can
I agree with you. But first we analyze what you have when you make things free of. Yeah? If I invite you for dinner and tell you it's free of chicken, it doesn't help you anything as well. That's why we need to positively define what is in there, in the system. Yeah? And sure, we need to say, hey, do we really need? Yeah? Instead of catching the energy, why do we destroy it? Yeah? Yeah? And that's exactly the thing. Yeah? But you can see Volvo, for example, there's no antimony in it. Yeah? So it's not necessary, but yeah, there is much lower lead content in it, whatever. So you see cadmium in some of them as well, even, which you see in here, amazingly. Yeah? And it's legal. Yeah? We have more of these types of things. By efficiency, tires now last twice as long than they did 20 years ago. And everybody thinks, oh, it's great. It reduces our environmental footprint. Yeah? And you think it's great, but never looked what is in the tires. Yeah? Now you have your bicycle. You have 100 square meters of lung to clean the air. Yeah? Yeah? And you now inhale all this tire dust. But the tires were never designed for inhalation. Yeah? Now you optimize the wrong thing. And it's amazingly sensitizing. Yeah? Just the latex which is used in there is amazingly sensitizing. About 15 to 20% already have a sensitivity. And because now you made the wrong things perfect by resource efficiency. Yeah? We try to minimize weight, yeah, which is amazing as well. We find all endless amounts of chemicals in that you really cannot do anything with the material except burning it, because it's never able to do something beneficially with it. We have pigments like green, for example. That's the worst of all of them. So when you always want to protect the environment, buy a black Porsche instead of a green one, because a green pigment, yeah, is a copper-containing phthalocyanine, yeah, replacing copper and chlorine in it. Yeah, so, but where the black is just carbon as a pigment for. We have new artificial sweeteners which don't degrade. They go into the environment, and so we can analyze it. Can you imagine? I was approached by the European Union to say, Michael, would you like to participate in a monitoring program for sucralose? Yeah. Where does it accumulate? That, hey, it's a wrong thing from the first place. Why should I do some research about where it accumulates in the North Sea or whatever? Yeah. And by the way, we have a shortage of sweet water. So isn't it great? If it doesn't degrade, we will solve a sweet water problem, because the whole planet will become sweet water thanks to Coca-Cola. Isn't it great? And Mentos and whatever. Yeah. So we have catalysts, yeah, which are optimized for FDA approval. When you drink Coca-Cola, you have up to 80 times more antimony in the Coke than it's legal in drinking water, because the catalyst is leached out, but it has FDA approval. And because Coca-Cola is not drinking water, they don't need to fulfill the drinking water standards, yeah, in that. Yeah. But antimony is the same. Yeah. There are new, in here, Sachtleben, for example, in Duisburg, yeah, it makes a new catalyst, yeah, which could go into PET, yeah, but it doesn't reach the market because the existing system is so highly optimized and it's FDA legal. Yeah? So what you should change it. Because of recycling, we lose all these rare elements. I was in Turkey in 1999 and I found up to 2.2% of copper in the building steel. Because United States don't allow to use used vehicles into recycling for building materials, they shipped them into Turkey. 6 million cars every year went into Turkey. At that time, the earthquake was not really severe, but 20,000 people died in that because one-to-one, the people in Turkey used the vehicle steel to make building steel. And because of efficiency, the copper doesn't get out of the vehicles anymore because they have smaller and smaller uses. And that's why we reached more than 2% of copper in it. As a natural copper ore has about 0.3% of copper in it. But when the concentration gets higher than 0.5%, you have a massive problem in an earthquake because the steel breaks immediately. So as a research thing, it would be key to look what is the dissipation of these rare materials. Because we find all different types of chromium, cobalt, molybdenum, vanadium, antimony, bismuth, nickel. All these rare metals all get diluted in the building steel. And what Europe is doing, Western Europe compared to Turkey, they dilute the used vehicle materials with virgin steel. First of all, the steel mills are the biggest sources of dioxins as smelters because no coating is designed for recycling, but it's a real downcycling. So if you want to do something about metals, the biggest loss is building steel. And in copper, you can never get it out anymore under reasonable circumstances. The rest of it ends in incinerators. Just the slags of German municipal waste incinerators contain more than 13,000 tons of copper. Each ton of copper makes 800 tons of waste. By that, there's more waste generated indirectly by making new copper than you can burn in the incinerator, because of the loss of the copper, because you have to make new copper. This copper is worth about 100 million euros just in the German incinerators. Sure, the transitional thing is how to get rare metals out of the ashes and slags of incinerators, but the longer thing is how to make products if they don't end up in incinerators, both.
So that's also a consequence that we use trading method not as a serious goal. Of course, in steel it is possible to separate different.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's exactly that. But first of all, we need.
But we are too lazy to do that.
No.
We use steel for cars, and car steel is going to the building industry, and the building industry waste goes to the casting industry. It's downgrading and downgrading. It's not actually grading.
No, it's downcycling. It's a cascade for downcycling. But that's the first thing where we need to say, hey, we don't want to call it recycling when we lose all these precious materials. When you talk about scarcity. And sure, we need to design vehicles that we can separate the different steel qualities to go back into the same quality of use. We did a project with a chemical company which we called a coating for the cars, so which you can put the information of the different steel quality in the different areas by the coatings in it. But first of all, we need to have more systematic data about where is actually these rare metals disappear. Where do we lose them? And that's money, and there is work, and there's funding by the European Union in that. Sure, we can do something with efficiency when we look what is the right thing to do so. In 2.8 kilograms of copper cable equals 7 kilograms of glass fiber. And sure, we need to look how to get the glass fiber in replacing for in the Netherlands 15% of the information transformation is by glass fibers, but 85% is still by copper. If you look at the world copper resources, Sri Lanka only uses 5% of the Dutch copper use, but 20% of the energy. So the material side for copper is more critical than the energy side. But this is where we are. We say no goal is more crucial for healing the global environment and stabilizing human population. In Israel, we say, if you save one life, you save the earth. Here it says, the more you kill, the better. Yeah? That's the logic out of it. Yeah? Yeah. And so the key question is, are we too many people on this planet? Yeah? That's the real first question. Because when we are too many, then everybody becomes a burden. Yeah? And then you can look at every child and say, it's better you would not exist. Yeah? If you look at the biomass of ants, you can take termites as well, you can take others, mosquitoes as well. You can look, the biomass of ants is about 4 times higher than of humans. And because ants never take elevators, they always take stairs. They only live 3 to 6 months. They equal in their calorie consumption about 30 billion people. But they are not there's not an overpopulation problem of ants because ants make rainforest possible. Only because of the ants. The Brazilian rainforest is existing because there are not a lot of nutrients in this rainforest. And if the ants don't bring them back, yeah, there's no forest. Yeah. So these ants are different to us. They are not minimizing their footprint. Yeah, they have a beneficial footprint. But this is where we are. We are 100% evil, 90% evil, 80%, and our goal is 0. But that makes everybody, your customer, your enemy. Yeah, the BSF report, and as well, it makes humans raw materials. Yeah. You see, the BSF report, which is the most decorated, highest appreciated report of all companies. Yeah, the first chapter is about natural resources, how BSF is reducing water, reducing waste, reducing energy. Yeah. And these are all these curves. Yeah. And the next chapter is already called human resources. Same logic. How to minimize, how to reduce, how to avoid. Yeah. So first make sure we are not human raw materials. Yeah. We are humans. Because otherwise we use our human dignity with that as well. Yeah. So that's why I'm talking about eco-effectiveness instead of eco-efficiency. I say, hey, this is where we are, and this is where we want to be. Yeah? Now I define a positive goal for that. Instead of efficiency, it's effectiveness. Sure, it makes sense to minimize the use of coal and of oil. There's no doubt about it, because it's stupid to put in the atmosphere. But where's our positive impact? Yeah? For being less bad, we are too many. Yeah? But if we can be good. Look, we took a northern approach and made a global standard out of it. When you're in Sweden, and it's dark and cold, you need to reduce, avoid, minimize, yeah, because you otherwise don't get through the winter. When you're in Sweden, your footprint is destroying the soil, because every footprint means destruction of the tundra. But when you're in Italy, your footprint means the water stays longer in the meadow. Yeah. When you're walking in Limburg, it means every footprint means that the water, yeah, reaches the river later. So your footprint is beneficial, because you generate a structure in the land which keeps water. Yeah. So the same in Texas. Yeah. So why don't we try to be good instead of less bad? For less bad, we are too many. But for good, yeah. That's why it's important to distinguish between efficiency and effectiveness. We need to say what is the right thing first, and then we can optimize it. And for some of them, some strategies when under scarcity, efficiency is definitely a strategy. But first you say, what is the right thing? Yeah. In the Netherlands, people understand the difference between efficiency and effectiveness so easily. Yeah. Like take Vincent van Gogh, yeah, completely inefficient, yeah, but very effective to express human feelings. Yeah. Think about a lipstick. Yeah. A woman eats about 6.3 kilograms of lipstick during her lifetime. Completely inefficient, but very effective. Yeah. Think about flowers. Yeah. Yeah. If your wife is really angry about you, yeah, 50 roses completely inefficient, but very effective. Yeah. Yeah. So to say what is the right thing first, not optimizing wrong things. So every food is food. Even not waste equals food. Because when you think about waste equals food, you still think about waste. Yeah? But we talk about food equals food. Yeah? Using current solar income, celebrating diversity. We need to distinguish between 2 different cycles. The stuff which gets consumed, like food, like detergents, like shoe soles, needs to go into the biosphere, needs to support the biosphere, become compost, need to be able to be burned without a filter as a real fuel. Yeah? The stuff which is just used as a service, like a washing machine, like a TV set, needs to be designed to go into the technosphere. There is no waste anymore. And we show you, it took us till last year, for 18 years, to have a paper which you can burn without a filter as a real fuel. Yeah. Before that, 2 years ago, people I will give it to you later. I have samples with me of that stuff. People had to pay to get rid of paper because there was over capacity of collecting paper. You had to pay 80 euros just to get rid of paper. It took us, now you would have a minimum price of at least 100 euros for the caloric value of paper, yeah, to burn it. So you can burn it or compost it, but we had to optimize the whole highly optimized systems from a different perspective. So now we have a paper which can go in biological systems. Otherwise, it's only hazardous waste. We do textiles designed for biological systems. We do seeds. If you make a sofa, the pieces you cut off are so toxic that they need to go into hazardous waste incineration. We choose everything what you cut off that you can use it to make peat out of it. Yeah? It's a positive definition what goes into that. We make paint which is cleaning the air for ACTO, for example. We use algae for different areas, including with KLM, we look for engine fuels. We did the first toilet paper with Van Houtum, yeah, in Roermond, Limburg, which is designed for you behind and to leave it behind. Yeah. And sure, it has black as a pigment because the green is not green. Yeah. So the black is the new green with that. We do a lot of these types of things for biological cycles. The technical cycle is more interesting. We take things like iron, for example, yeah, where you just sell the use of the chair because you don't consume a chair. You can disassemble it easily and get nutrient management. The plastic here you can use for 200 times for the same purpose. It's designed for that. Yeah. This is the first TV set designed for indoor use by Philips. And that's why you see you need interdisciplinary way to work together because the communication is key for that. Yeah. So when you say this is designed for indoor use, the others say, what about the other stuff? Yeah. And this TV set is off-gassing 30,000 times less than any other TV set because we positively choose the stuff which goes into that. It's post-consumer recycled aluminum, but what this Philips did, they added 200 euros extra, call it EcoNova. Compared to any other TV, it saves 2/3 of the electricity bill. So you could give it away for free, basically, if you would get the energy savings over 12 years for that. Yeah. So it took us 3.5 years for convincing Mr. Frans van Houten, yeah, to sell light for Rotterdam instead of selling light bulbs. Yeah. 3.5 years. 3.5 years ago, he said, we will never do this. Yeah. Today, yeah, it saves about 60% of the electricity bill of Rotterdam if they do this. Why? Because you don't want to own a light bulb, you want to have light. So we take market economy seriously. In a TV set, you find 4,360 different chemicals. You really want to own 4,360 different chemicals, or do you want to watch TV? Yeah. But what they do, they call it EcoNova, and then they said, oh, nobody wants to buy Eco TV. Sure, nobody wants to have an Eco TV, you just want to have the best TV. Yeah. Yeah. And so the marketing communication is key for that as well. Yeah. You see, this is the off-gassing diagram, and these are only control peaks. Only control peaks. The off-gassing is amazingly low. You see, you compare to other stuff. We see that cradle to cradle, the chemical industry, DSM is our biggest supporter. Yeah. Because they understand it's about innovation and quality, and they want to attract the smartest young people. We see Auping, the first bed designed for indoor use, yeah, positively chosen in that. Normally, it's like smelling glues, yeah, when you sleep on a bed. IKEA says, please expose the mattress which you buy 48 hours to air before you sleep on it. Oh, sick. Yeah. And or a toaster, a princess says, yeah, toaster says, oh, please don't eat the first 5 toasts, yeah, of your toaster. Oh, sick. Yeah. And we can do something in combination. Van Hansewinkel, yeah, yeah, changing from waste management to nutrient management, yeah, from the lowest on the food chain to the highest, You think what you need to change in logistics? You make new products like Deso carpet. The Deso carpet is a new carpet which is cleaning the air. It's not just less toxic. And the amazing thing is Deso could increase their sales from 16 to 24% market share in Europe in 2 years. Yeah? Because now the more carpet you buy, the quicker you are. They're only selling floor packaging insurance instead of selling carpets. You can make far better stuff, not the cheapest thinking stuff anymore. But it needs a positive roadmap. You need an agenda where you say, hey, here I am, this is what I'm doing, and please, when you buy my carpet, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. You don't need certification as well, because you can make it transparent through the internet what's going on. Yeah. And then you say, okay, if I buy a carpet, I help species diversity, I help cleaning water. They now have water which is cleaner when they release it to the environment than when they get it first. Yeah. And that's why it's about innovation and quality. They're now the most profitable carpet maker in the world. Yeah. Yeah. When we started with them in 2008, it would just break even. Because now the customer is your friend. Yeah. Because the more you buy, the quicker they can change. Yeah. I want to show you here's this little film by Maersk, a cradle-to-cradle passport, because as you know, Rotterdam is the world's most important place for logistics. 93% of the costs to make steel are energy and material. So labor costs are just 7%. If you now learn to manage materials and energy flows, yeah, it makes sense to sell the use of this thing. It's only 1 minute video just to show the cradle-to-cradle passport.
Maersk Line will implement the most comprehensive cradle-to-cradle passport ever seen for the new giant EEE ships. The cradle-to-cradle passport will identify each and every nut and bolt of the giant 60,000-ton ships, making vastly improved recycling possible for most materials as well as safe disposal for the rest. The materials of the ships will all be marked and numbered, separating high and low-grade steel, copper wiring, hazardous materials, and waste. Based on the sorting, it will be possible to reuse nearly all materials for new ships, making dangerous and polluting scrapping a thing of the past.
So in 2015, there would be not 1 gram of waste anymore. Everything designed for the technosphere and biosphere. Can you imagine how much actual material that needs? Yeah, in that. So it's about innovation and quality. I want to show you the Good Baby company. It's the world's largest maker of baby stuff. And they start with Scarcity, that video. You can see it on YouTube. I don't show the whole video, just the beginning. Yeah.
In today's fast-consuming society, we are starting to understand that we are making an enormous claim on the Earth's natural resources. Imagine what will happen when the rapidly growing world population lives up to the insatiable trend towards consumerism. The cradle-to-cradle philosophy shows that we don't have to choose between economical and ecological prosperity. If we design products more intelligently and use materials more effectively, both business and nature can thrive and grow. Cradle-to-cradle is all about following nature's design principles. Waste equals food, keeping all materials in continuous cycles, stimulating the use of renewable energy, and celebrating diversity. By learning from nature's design principles, eco-effective design conceives industrial systems that emulate the healthy abundance of nature. In addition to functionality and beauty, cradle-to-cradle products need to be designed for either the biological or technical cycle. After the product's useful life, materials are carefully disassembled and...
Good. You can look at this video at YouTube, Cradle-to-Cradle Good Baby. Between signing a contract and the first products on the market, it was just 1 pregnancy period, 9 months. But why could we do this? Because of working with Steelcase, Arendt, Herman Miller, because we can use the same materials across the industry. That's what we call techno-mimicry. We can use this in one area and we can use it in the other area, what we learn from that. And they make more baby stuff, yeah, as I said, than there are babies on this planet. But they only can do this as a blueprint. That's why we try to have the Netherlands as a blueprint which can be copied, yeah, sure, with license fees for that. Yeah. And we have a contract till 2020 to change the whole company into cradle to cradle. We do the same with other companies like Puma, for example. We choose all the chemicals which go into Puma products, and we can use the expertise from that, sure, for a good baby in that as well. Yeah. We need to get copper back. We need to make buildings like trees. This is Bill McDonough, my best friend and colleague, and architect and designer. Yeah. And he is definitely the best spokesperson you can imagine for Cradle to Cradle, because he's a designer and he's a charismatic speaker. I'm just his material boy, basically, like Madonna would say. We can make buildings like trees. Yeah. We can make buildings with clean air. This is a building in Barcelona, which is under construction right now. It will grow butterflies in it. Yeah. It's one of the things. So every Friday, yeah, we will release the butterflies for the city of Barcelona to have ancient butterflies back. Yeah. So we make stuff which is beneficial, not less bad. We make revolving doors in buildings which make it runs a coffee machine. This is just a gimmick. But we put always in each project at least 3 big messages. Yeah, how to learn about how to handle steel, for example, how to handle indoor air quality. And we can basically raise the floor, yeah, and we put people below. We get more agricultural land by using the walls at the buildings as well. We can make buildings which clean air and which bring habitats back. This is about a square kilometer of green roof. We got a dozen of bird species back which were not seen for decades in Detroit area. We can make healthy buildings. We can make beneficial stuff. Here you say windows, for example. Schüco is Europe's largest maker of windows. We are no longer selling these windows. We are selling the use of the window, because you cannot make an energy-saving window without using toxic stuff. But do you really want to own that window? You want to look through and you want to insulate the building. So you sell 25 years of looking through insurance. That's how the company turns into a raw material bank, because they only sell the service and they stay in touch with their customer. We do this, you know, the whole region of Limburg, Friesland, etc. is changing everything into cradle to cradle. And there is a lot which needs to be done from a scientific perspective. You see in Amsterdam Park 2020, for example, yeah, we had the Floriade. Yeah, based on cradle to cradle, we demonstrated about 200 products there. What we can do is we can nutrients back. So the money which we earn, we put into O Instituto Ambiental, a non-for-profit organization in Brazil, where we built wastewater treatment with municipal waste, with sewage sludge. And what we get, a farmer can feed his family with 5,000 inhabitants equivalents, making biogas and doing agriculture with wastewater. And we did now 150 facilities in 20 years. Yeah. And the amazing thing is, what is really interesting, the crime rate goes down in these favelas for more than 90%. Because if people have a positive goal together, they don't cannibalize each other anymore. They support each other. That's why the Dutch culture is so interesting, because when half of your country is below sea level, you cannot romanticize nature, like Prince Charles talking about Mother Earth. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. Because when you talk about Mother Earth, the next flood would take you. Yeah? It's about learning from nature, but it's a partnership. And that's why the Dutch culture is important as a support culture, because if your neighbor is not taking care of the dike, yeah, if your neighbor is not doing well, you would drown as well. So it's a support thing, not a control situation. Yeah. We need to get phosphate back. It's the most urgent thing. Yeah. And sure, what we see, Sermphos is under big problems. If we lose Sermphos in Vlissingen as a company, we will lose 20 years of technology, which we don't have. We need phosphorus back from sludges, from bones, from all different types of things. Sermphos is under difficulties because of eco-dumping, because the European Union is buying phosphorus from Kazakhstan at lowest prices, basically. But we see the government is announcing that the Netherlands will be the first country. This is endless applied science to do so. Social, cultural, technical skills around to do so. So the European Union is putting money in there. We see this in universities. We see that Ellen MacArthur, McKinsey are taking up cradle to cradle. It becomes mainstream with a lot of quality problems. Sometimes it's more noodle to noodle or noodle to noodle. It doesn't matter. Yeah. We have such a fast change, you always have a quality problem. It doesn't matter. Yeah. We see that European Union picks it up. There is money for cradle to cradle. Yeah. So it's because of Joke Schouwvliegen, mostly, the Belgian president for Environment Council. Yeah. It's about 100 million euros of cradle to cradle money in the European Union. There's Interact programs, Cradle to Cradle network. Yeah, there is money. Just think about to ask for. There's Cradle to Cradle Islands, sponsored by European Union. Yeah. There's Cradle to Cradle Biz, which you can conduct science with companies. Taiwan is becoming Cradle to Cradle Island, yeah, because they cannot romanticize nature as well. They have permanent threats by earthquakes and by thunderstorms. We need to form strategic partnerships. If you see here, if you change the diapers from polyacrylates, you know, hazardous materials basically, from plastic which doesn't really be compostable, you could grow with one baby 150 trees in Israel or in Tunisia or in Egypt, wherever you want. Yeah? So why do you want to be less bad when you can be good? Why don't you make a footprint which is beneficial? But that's why it needs you at the Hogeschool to do so. And sure, you can work together with universities, with institutes, etc. So then you can look at a child and say, welcome to the planet. And then this child is not greedy anymore because it feels accepted. Then we don't have a lower consumption of materials. But this is a consequence, not by saying, oh, we are too many and you shouldn't have that. Out of this, people just grab stuff. Yeah. So that's the opposite of scarcity, sustainability. No, it's celebrating abundance. Celebrating abundance of human genius, celebrating abundance of human creativity. It's not about you must save the planet. Yeah? Like in Germany, people tell you, you must have fun. Yeah? There is no fun with that. Yeah? It's the same thing. So it's no must. It's about celebrating our universities, our creativity. That means we can use now 40 years of blaming and shaming for innovation and quality. And that's why it needs a Hogeschool for that. Thank you very much.
We're going to let people ask some questions.
Yeah, sure.
Please hold on to your microphone.
Micro for that.
I'm going to give the word to anybody who has any question. We had already some, but I'm sure there are more questions. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Adi de Wilds. I'm a lecturer in risk management, but also I'm a professor for behavioral economics. Now, behavior is something that could interact tremendously with all these technological innovations. So can you please explain what are the risks and what are the opportunities if we introduce behavior?
The thing is I think we can design things to make them much less complex for people, because we right now expect too much in behavior changes with active learning processes. And I think we can do this differently by design. Because we see that 95% of the people want to be good instead of less bad. So people want to be good if you give them the chance to be good. But we always plan as well in risk management for the 5% potential terrorists. But when we take care of the 95%, they can take care of 5%. And this means, for example, in behavior changes, we like how people are. And the more we like how they want to be. So we want to support them how they want to be. To give you an example, we do a new washing machine. We test it right now, where you just sell 3,000 times of washing. And it has a counter in it, so it's 5,000 points. 90 degrees is 3 points. 60% is 2 points. Is 2 points, and 30 degrees Celsius is 1 point. So now people fill the washing machine without telling them behavior change. You have to do so. And now they wash at lowest possible temperature because it's for their own benefit. So that's why we like how people are, and it's not about to educate them for behavior change. It's changing the design and supporting people in their habits. Give you another example. people enjoy littering. The more south you are, the better, the more people are littering. Yeah. And so you said, oh, people in India, they don't have environmental consciousness. We need to change the behavior. It's the right thing to litter under warm climates. Yeah. But we need to design stuff for that. If things, low-weight packaging, like ice cream packaging, needs to be designed. So we designed an ice cream packaging for Unilever, which is a liquid at room temperature. It's only film when it's frozen. People in China throw 60 million pieces of waste out of trains every day. Should we now do behavioral change? No, we need to design the packaging which you can throw out of the train. In former times, these were the most beneficial areas to grow vegetables along the railway lines. Yeah? Yeah. And so why should we change them instead of changing them? This new plastic is a liquid at room temperature. It's only a film when it's frozen. So you can take the ice cream out, you can throw it out, and it contains seeds from rare plants. So by throwing it away, you behave like a songbird. You support biodiversity. So people talk about behavior changes because their design is so primitive. So let's design systems which makes life simpler for people, and they can behave like they want to behave. Yeah? Otherwise, their life is already too complex, yeah? And too difficult, and they get depressed by all the things which somebody tries to tell them. So make simple systems, because we don't want to have behavior changes by learning per se, but by designing systems which naturally lead to behavior changes in that. Yeah.
I'm going to change microphones.
Good, yeah. That's your...
Is there any other question? Yeah. This is working already now.
The most successful thing what
Thank you.
Most successful was when people don't ask questions in big audiences, you pay them €5 for the first question. Yeah, that works. Yeah. Just as a trick.
Did they want to ask extra questions, or did they stop asking questions?
Right, I would have many questions, of course. My name is Peter Troxler, and I'm looking into the third industrial revolution, particularly the maker movement. One idea I liked about your talk was this idea of abundance. Now, we are in a situation where we do have an abundance of ideas, but we have systems in place that sort of fence in that abundance of ideas and make us think of, if I've got an idea, I need to patent it, fence it off, IP protect it. Could you speculate on the impact of open source ideas on this cradle to cradle and eco-effectiveness paradigm?
Yeah, so what we did, we made cradle to cradle accessible for everybody by a certification system financed by the Dutch Postal Lottery. Can you imagine? The Dutch Postal Lottery was spending nearly 10 million euros in California for supporting such an independent, non-for-profit institute that everybody can do cradle to cradle, which is very nice. There's now a Dutch one in Venlo where you can go. So everybody can take his stuff and go there. But with open source, you have a certain quality problem, because then people take stinking old PVC and call it cradle to cradle and put it into new carpets and call it cradle to cradle. So that's why you need to have if you want to do an open source, it needs to be an independent certification for that. But everybody has access to that. So we just gave it away, and it's accessible for everybody. And on the other side, you have massive quality problems with that, because people use this as marketing tricks. Yeah. But that's what you have when you have a fast change of society, that you have a quality problem. Yeah. If you see what happened in Egypt, for example, yeah, with the revolution, they first have a quality problem as well, just to make sure that the goals which they had in their revolution get really implemented. So that's why we said it will be the fastest thing if it's accessible for everybody in that issue.
Here, 2 questions. I start with you.
Okay. Can I ask you a very personal question?
Yeah.
Do you believe in this development, cradle to cradle, or is it a mere an ideology?
Sorry, but may I ask who's asking?
My name is Tom Voor. I'm lecturer at the Hogeschool. healthcare innovation?
For me, it's not a question of a belief. For me, I'm analyzing muscle's milk, breast milk now for 27 years, yeah, and I don't find one sample of breast milk which could be sold as drinking milk, not one. Yeah. And the legal limits for drinking milk are exceeded for several hundred times for some of the parameters. So I'm a chemist, and I'm embarrassed by that, because this is primitive chemistry. So what I'm doing is I'm just working to make sure that in 2020 there are no chemicals made which accumulate in biological systems. Yeah. And it's a quality thing, it's not a belief thing. Yeah. It's only, and as well, it's the cradle-to-cradle concept came out of a big project for the CEO of Ciba-Geigy, where we could analyze and ask different approaches in different cultures. So we got several million euros to analyze what do people do in China, in India. We could talk to native people, we could talk to Mikhail Gorbachev about transformations, etc. And we could pay these people all for that. Yeah? And that's what it became a scientific concept at the early 90s. Yeah? But it takes time till people understand it as a cultural concept. And we are amazingly fast for that. So it's not a belief thing. There's one basic belief personally behind it, which is connected to Hannah Arendt or to Augustinus, to whatever. It's a belief behind that I don't believe that evil has its own quality. Yeah? Yeah, that there is not an evil per se. It's just the absence of quality. Yeah? Like there is no darkness, it's just the absence of light. It's not cold, it's the absence of heat. Yeah? So for me, yeah, what you call evil is just the absence of quality, of good. Yeah? And I think we can make far better quality, far better innovation. We can become native to this planet. We had to destroy nature because nature was not nice to us. Yeah? So naturally we would live 30 years. Yeah? If we could cut ourselves in our hand, we didn't know whether we survive the next day. That we get older, it's because of us engineers, scientists, architects, etc. And we can celebrate a human footprint. That's the only assumption to say, hey, there is no evil, it's just the absence of quality, of good. Yeah? And that's the only assumption, but this is the only one. If the other way around, in the logic of people with traditional religion, yeah, if evil would have its own quality, God would not exist, because God would not be almighty, yeah, when it would be its own quality. Yeah? So, but that's a philosophical question behind it. But before we come to that, we first can just clean up a lot of stuff. Yeah? We just have very primitive systems. Yeah? The systems are, we look at very simple things and we are amazed how primitive they are. Yeah? So I'm just embarrassed as a chemist. I'm insulted. I said, hey, if I want to be the best chemist, how can I accept such a primitive chemistry, which means that plastic goes into the oceans? For me, it's insulting. Yeah? How can I attract young people when chemistry is so primitive? Yeah? So that's where I just see it as an innovation engine. And I can be very pragmatic about it. So we can stay away with any belief first, because we have a massive quality problem. Yeah? So, and when we look to make, for example, buildings like trees instead of passive houses, it's an endless innovation engine. Making buildings which clean the air, buildings which clean water, buildings which make soil, buildings which are carbon positive. Yeah, so we don't need beliefs for that. Everybody has personal beliefs, which I tried to explain for me as well. But we don't need this. We just can look for quality. Yeah? And a product which becomes waste, as I said, has a quality problem. So why don't we just look for quality and innovation and beauty? If you want to see it in a romantic European sense, it's not beautiful when it's toxic. We look at Mattel toys, and I'm analyzing now for 21 years Mattel toys. And we find in Mattel toys more than 500 really dangerous chemicals. And they built their whole business on toxic stuff. Yeah? This is insulting. I have children, and I feel embarrassed that I give children plastic toys which are toxic waste. Yeah? Yeah, this is just perverse, yeah, to do so. So I don't need beliefs for that. It's just about science. We can just stay in our scientific paradigm. We don't need beliefs for that at all. And cradle to cradle is not an invention. It's just collecting wisdom, combining European way to think complex, American way to get things done, Asian way to think in cycles, and the Southern way to have fun with it. That's cradle to cradle. Yeah.
Let me rephrase my question, sorry. As you talk about it, it is comforting, I think. It's like inevitable that this...
Yeah,
is it inevitable?
I'm sure. Look, it's a discovery. When you see that we are the only species who make waste, and that's why we are too many, then the first thing is to say, how can we do nutrient management? The only question is where I'm a little skeptical is that we already see in the last 3 years, the public sector lost in the Western world 3,000 billion euros of vitality just by financial crisis. Because like the chemical industry, people are privatizing the profit and they are socializing the risk in banks. So if we do so, we have a problem because we lose the vitality of the funding to change things. And as well, at the same time when we did this TV set for Philips, and 1 week before we showed it to the public, Philips announced that they sell their TV business to a Chinese manufacturer. And if we lose the high-tech skills for that, then we might be too late to change things. But look, for me, it's so obvious that you need to learn to think in cycles because the system is limited for that. But when you use it, we get energy input and we can celebrate abundance if you do so. So the only thing is what I say, if it takes 130 years for women to get the right to vote after Declaration of Human Rights, which is so obvious, then we don't have another 130 years for cradle to cradle. That's all what I'm saying.
There are still 3 questions I saw, and the first one was over here, and then there are 2 over there, and then I think we should start to end.
Okay, thank you. My name is Arne Maas. I'm a professor of another primitive science, which is called marketing. My question is about, I was getting more and more pessimistic during your talk. Finally, at the end, you had a few nice slides of what we can do to make things better. My question is about the companies that are taking sort of responsibility now for the things they are doing, more than, it seems to me, like more than governments. What do you think would be the best way to accelerate this whole process in terms of going to cradle? Is it because it's now more the technology-driven companies, if I may say so, more than, for instance, the Coca-Colas and the Unilevers who are doing a lot of things in these areas? What would you think is the best way to proceed here?
So the worst is what you said already. The worst if companies take responsibility, because that becomes an ethical, moral category. And when they are under stress, they forget about that. And to give you an example, a company which is really suffering from the companies looking at cradle to cradle is Arendt, because they think it's a moral thing. And what do you do in a crisis, a financial crisis? The first thing, what you don't need is furniture. So because they say, oh, can I reduce my costs to do so? So, and Arendt makes it as a moral thing. At the same time, Desso took it as a quality thing. And then people understand it. So it's not a responsibility thing. The whole corporate social responsibility thing is a mistake, because it's thought in the United States where you don't have any rights really. That's why these companies work, most of them, like totalitarian systems. The CEO says something and everybody else repeats it in his or her words. Because they are so afraid to say something differently. I had it 3 times that people lost their job just by saying something different than the CEO. Here it's the opposite. The CEO says something and everybody else says something differently. That this allows creativity. So you need corporate social responsibility that you don't get fired in half an hour, but in an hour. They lost their jobs. They call security and they just take that person out, because that's why design is so ugly. Why the marketing decides always about the design, and that way always perpetuates the same thing, because people only can ask for what they saw before somehow. Corporate social responsibility is like when a man goes to his wife and says, "For me, you're emancipated enough." This is that's a feudalistic habit. I'm talking about rights, people having rights, and that's why I'm talking about quality and innovation. It's all. Let's talk about innovation and quality, and not about responsibility. And because we see what we have as the biggest problem that these companies, if they do it really in the right way, yeah, and look for that, they get so amazingly profitable that they get bought by bigger investors. Yeah. It's a little pity, like Van Houten, for example. Can you imagine? Say, yeah, from being basically just break even, in 3 years they could get an EBIT for nearly 20%. Yeah, for the toilet paper. Toilet paper is a commodity. Yeah? Yeah. Nobody needs toilet paper for that perspective of reducing. Yeah? It's normally cost competitive. But now it's different. It's designed for you behind and to leave it behind, and everybody wants to have it. Schiphol Airport, everybody says, this, we want to have it. And we make paper towels, yeah, which you say, hey, please watch, you see that Schiphol, please wash your hands carefully, because we want to have the towel back. Yeah? And we don't want to have your dirt and whatever in it. Yeah? And there are no tampons and no shaving plates. It's really clean stuff which people get back. There's no waste because they get the material back and to secure a raw material base, and they earn money from the cost which you normally would have to burn it. Yeah? And it connects it to the customer. It allows completely different ways to connect. But it makes the company so profitable that they get sold for a fortune to Friesland Bank. Yeah? And Friesland Bank, the first thing is they come and said, can we cut costs? Yeah? So they cut down our budget for 80% because they said we need to reduce costs now. Yeah? Yeah, so we cannot handle success with that because we don't have a strategy with this, but it's extremely profitable because people are proud to work in these companies. Before they make toilet paper, now they're saving the world. Yeah? Mm-hmm. It's a completely different attitude and mindset behind that as well. Makes people proud because they make the first sewage sludge which can go into Surmfoss. Yeah? Just because normally with 1 kilogram of toilet paper you're contaminating up to 5 million liters of water, higher than drinking water standard, because nothing in toilet paper is designed for a biological cycle. Yeah? Amazingly primitive. It's insulting from a chemistry perspective to make such a primitive chemistry to do so. Yeah? And that's why it's more that it's not a responsibility thing, it's an innovation engine. And the new CEO of ACTO, who was the first one that they got as an engineer, now first says, oh, this is the end of religion, we now need to earn money, shareholder value. And but can you imagine how many creative people they lose with that? What idiot, and this ACTO company is dependent on innovation. Next thing is they lay off people to reduce costs. How perverse. Because this engineer now needs to show that he's a smart economy person as well. How sick. But it will take time because people get the message and they just leave the company and join others and do other stuff with that. Because why should they do shareholder value and ACTO Nobel instead of doing innovation chemistry? Also, the result is a disaster because we now take all the powder coatings from PPG. PPG makes the powder coatings for all these industries which we work with, including Good Baby in China. And powder coatings is the most biggest part of the business in the coating for ACTO. But it's PPG, and PPG just says, can we earn money with it? Yes, it makes sense. Is it a business thing?
Okay, we were going to the last question over here. There were two, but maybe you have to fight for it.
Yeah, I have a question. Marcel Ludemar, logistics. We run against a lot of locked-in systems. One of these systems is the fiscal systems. You talk about ships. We write off ships in, maybe 8 years, cars in 8 years, computers in 3 years. So these all locked-in companies and also in our households. And if you say we're going to have, and I agree, we're going to move from ownership to use, to have the functionality, which is actually what we design in the products, and we don't need the product itself, and we want to maintain that as well. But I think we need different systems, different fiscal systems that are going to, enforce these ideas of cradle or cradle. Did you do any research in that? Did you find researchers that do research in that, or what is your opinion about changing these locked-in systems?
So in the logistics, these containers are amazingly primitive. They stayed highly optimized, but they stayed the same like they were 60 years ago. And if you look at new materials, new innovation and services, you can make completely different containers in logistics. And you can make different ships, which basically are fixed and stabilized by the containers differently in that, like you do it right now. And that's why Maersk is so interesting as a logistic company. And sure, one of the key...
Maybe my question is about the fiscal system. What
yep.
what the government should do to enforce cradle to cradle in their system. Because as a company, you invest, you write off your investment in a couple of years, and that is not always beneficial for the cradle to cradle. My question is, what is your opinion again? Did you do any research on that topic?
No, I'm a material scientist. That's why the start of my talk is celebrating mediocrity. I can support you with the knowledge what this material is, but I'm not a financial expert on one side. On the other side, we are happy about write-off stuff, because then you can calculate it. You can really make, look, we are not interested in do-sum. We are not interested in stuff which lasts long. We are interested in defined use periods, and we get the stuff back in time. And what we will see is now we have been approached, for example, by London metal trading organizations. They will sell the use of these metals, yeah? And then they become banks, and they will no longer keep them just stored somewhere. They will sell the use of the materials for defined use periods. So we need to define the use period for that. Because look, if you have a washing machine, people think it's great you have a washing machine which lasts for 30 years. But innovation in washing machines is 6 to 7 years. Yeah? But when you put a computer, when I give you a computer and I tell you this computer lasts for 30 years, you will say, what an idiot. Yeah? Yeah. But when you put the same computer in a washing machine, people talk about duursam. Yeah? So that's why the first thing is it's not about life cycle, it's about use period definition. And it will not first come from the tax area. The companies do this because they secure their raw material base. That's the first thing. And I'm sure, as I said, we need to work together. You have expertise in different areas, and we need to come together and learn from each other. That's why mediocrity is important to accept, because then you know that you are not the know-it-all, that you only have ideas in 5% of what is necessary, and you need to work with the others from that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very inspiring talk. I don't want to ask a question. I would like to ask you if we could collaborate on something together. One of the issues you mentioned that I found very exciting was the asthma case. I am a professor here in the Transitions in Cares department in healthcare innovation. And I was wondering, what could we do as a joint project to do something about the schimmels, the mold in the homes? Is there something we could do together with your group, and we could just think about this more in detail and work it out perhaps as a project proposal and work together on it? I have some contacts with doctors who are very interested in asthma, so maybe we can do some joint ventures?
Yeah, I think, thank you for that kind invitation, because that's exactly the purpose as well why I'm here. Because we need to work together, otherwise we are too slow. Yeah? We're just too slow, and we need to look for funding. That's why I showed you that Cradle to Cradle had so much funding in it. Just the city of Bielefeld just got 600,000 euros for the feasibility study for Cradle to Cradle of the city of Bielefeld. Yeah? It was about 20,000 maximum. Yeah? So because there's so much money in that field, because people understand it's a positive agenda. And sure, I would love to work with you together and about positive goals. Let's take Rotterdam and say in 2020 we want to have indoor air quality in buildings better than outside air. Yeah? And we could make stuff which cleans air. Like if you see these carpets are actively absorbing fine dust. Yeah? And the chance that we die because of fine dust is twice as high than we die of alcohol abuse. Yeah? So for alcohol you can decide at least till the first or second class, whatever. Yeah, but for fine dust, you inhale it. Yeah? So that's why I'm talking about why can't we become Rotterdam a place where we said we want to be a place where people can test healthy tires, where they can look for healthy brake pads and braking systems per se. Yeah? That's why definitely, and that's why I'm saying, look, the distinction between universities and universities of applied science are stupid, because we need to work together, otherwise we're too slow. And the strategies at Hogeschools in most of the cases, are far more effective than at universities. At universities, we are paid for problems. Yeah? As long as things are unclear, there is funding. Yeah? And that doesn't make sense. We need to pay, we get paid for solving problems. So why don't we look in 2020 to have healthy air quality in Rotterdam, and then we could motivate all the people in that, and really starting with houses, positive goals around it, and you could discuss positive goals endlessly. Why don't we make transportation systems which clean air, underbody coatings, for example, which absorb fine dust instead of using my lung to clean the air? So I'm definitely thankful for that kind invitation, and I would like to really to partner with you. And look, I got this chair at Erasmus School mostly because I wanted to be there to show it makes sense for business. Yeah? Because otherwise it becomes a moral thing, which people forget about it. But at the same time, sure, we can use Delft and Twente as well for the material science. Twente is amazing material scientists. They're amazing designers as well. So just let's work together, and I'm really open for partnering with you, working with you, because we are far too slow compared with what we need to do. Thanks.
Thank you very much.